Welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, Gene.
And V, we interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they want us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Jorge Gutierrez. Hey!
Thank you guys so much. As I was just telling you earlier, I've been listening to a ton of what you guys have been recording, and I find these podcasts fascinating. I love the type of questions you guys ask, and I think I said it. I think you guys have the best animation podcast out there, and I hope you guys do 1,000 of these.
Oh man, I don't know if we're gonna get to 1,000.
We'll try.
So positive.
We'll try.
Thank you very much. I know. No, thank you very much. That means a lot. Like we don't know who's listening to these, and the fact that somebody of your caliber likes what we do is
it's very validating.
It's really good. Yeah, it's incredibly validating, and it does. You know what? Just for you, we are going to do 1,000.
Yeah, it worked.
We're gonna hit that. We're gonna hit that mark. So, for those who might not know, tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Jorge Gutierrez, and I've been doing a lot of press, so I need to rattle all this stuff off. I'm a creator, I'm a director, I'm a writer, I'm an executive producer, I'm a voice actor, and I'm a character designer.
Yeah.
That is so impressive. Yeah, you've done so much. How did it all start? What's the origin?
Oh, the backstory.
Yes.
So for me, so I'm originally from Mexico City, and my dad is an architect, but he's no longer practices. My mom was very much a bohemian. Oh my God, you're drawing out to you guys, amazing. And she would play music and sing, and she loves the arts. So as a little kid,
you already have this wonderful drawing.
She's now an art director in Italy, in Rome. We both assumed everybody's parents were artists. It just depended on what kind of artists they were.
I love that.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. So when I turned 13 at a big family dinner, they asked, a family friend asked, like, Jorge, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a writer because I was already writing stories. I want to be a painter because I love drawing and I love paintings. And I want to be a movie director because I super loved it. Basically, movies. I was obsessed with movies. And a family friend, everybody laughed, right, including my father. Ha 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 ha! Innocent child, stupid child. And this family friend said, "Wait, hold on. The stupid boy might be onto something." He said, "That is animation. You get to write stories, and you get to make paintings move, and you get to make little movies." So at 13, my father said, "All right, Jorge, find the hardest school in the world for that. And if you can get in, then maybe I'll let you study that." Right? Because I have a classic Mexican dad, which they basically make it really. It's like the Predator. They train you for life in a way that is very unique. Mm-hmm. I think Mexican dads, if it was a video game, Mexico dads are like expert mode, and
hell yeah.
Life is pretty tough, so they are going to toughen you up, and compliments are going to be very, very scarce, and they will mean something when they come, right? So that was it for me. I became obsessed. At that point, we moved to the border, to Tijuana, which is across the street from San Diego, and I started going to Comic-Con. I started sort of getting immersed in all the comics world and sort of finding out about CalArts and trying to figure out how to get in there. This is late 80s, early 90s, so there was no internet. So you literally had to go to the library and find this information. And I remember seeing all the brochures, and you could see students' drawings in there. And I couldn't believe, like, students drew this? This is crazy. How can they draw so well? And as a kid, you don't know the stories. You don't know that a lot of these people actually went, they went to other art schools before they went to CalArts. Or they spent years trying to get in. And of course, as a 13, 14-year-old, you're like, this is incredible. So I went to visit as a kid, and they told me, yeah, you got to learn figure drawing and perspective and construction and all this stuff that meant nothing to me as a kid. But I understood figure drawing. So in Tijuana, I would take a ton of figure drawing classes, and I hated it. I still hate it. Figure drawing was not my thing. Again, as a young 15, 16-year-old in Tijuana, all the models were basically exotic dancers from Tijuana. So my dad would look at my drawings and go, what, where are you going to draw these things? So that was a lot of my learning. And then because I was naive and I didn't know any better, I started drawing things that I thought Americans wanted to see. Right. So I started drawing Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse and Bart Simpson and all the things that I thought, well, it's an American cartoon animation school. This is what they want to see. And meanwhile, I was watching Liquid Television. I loved anime and I loved all these things, but I just didn't think you could do those things at Cal Arts. And then I also was painting and writing stories about Mexican folklore and mythology and pop culture in Mexico. And again, I just never thought that stuff could happen in the US. So I was just doing it for me, for fun. So eventually I went to apply as a 17-year-old, as a high school junior. And I was told by my teacher, go, you'll get rejected, which will be fine. So basically I got prepared, right? Go, you'll get rejected, but you'll learn. You'll learn why you got rejected. And then the next time you apply, you'll be one step closer. But you'll probably get rejected again. And it might take 2 or 3 or 4 years to get in. And during that time, you can go to community college and get all your, regular classes out of the way. So that was my plan going into it. Super good advice.
That was really good advice.
So here's what happened. I stupidly take my figure drawings, right? My exotic dancer figure drawings, and all my American wannabe drawings of Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse and Bart Simpson. And then I took a painting portfolio because I wanted to see if I could get into any of the painting schools, because I figured it's free to apply, or at least it was back then.
That's really good advice.
I could never pursue painting, but what if I could get in? Literally for pure ego experimentation. So I go to Cal Arts. Oh my God, you guys are so good at drawing.
We're not talking.
I go to Cal Arts.
You're doing all the talking.
Yeah.
And I get in this, there's 2 lines. There's a character animation line, which is sort of the more traditional Cal Arts animation program. And then there's experimental animation. Yeah. And at that point, I had figured out Henry Selick went here. Steve Hillenburg went here. I started seeing all these people that I admired. What's his name? Peter Chung, who did Ian Flux, went there. So that department seemed like, well, that's the cool department. I want to go there. So I get in that line, and there's this super buff guy in front of me. I'll never. This is like a movie because I remember all this stuff. And he had this amazing portfolio, and there's a long line. And Jules Engel, who is Hungarian, who worked at UPA, worked at Disney, founded the experimental animation program, had a thick accent. This guy, this surfer dude, puts down his portfolio. And to me, as a 17-year-old, this guy looked like he was 50, right? He looked super old to me. And these drawings were like Glenn Keane drawings, like rough charcoal with beautiful construction, just anatomy literally up the wazoo. It was incredible drawings. And I remember Jules looking at them like they were x-rays. And he just, looked at each one, and at the end he said, anything else? And the guy was like, no, this is all, my food drawings. And he goes, you have nothing to say.
Oh, damn.
No, thank you.
Wow.
So it was like, you know how to draw, but you're saying nothing with your drawings, right? And that's fucking harsh. So I'm shaking in my 17-year-old booth coming up next. I opened my portfolio, and I got a sneer from my freaking drawings from Jules, like I think he thought I was messing with him. And then he starts looking through the American drawings, and he again, I'm 17, and this guy looks like Chuck Jones to me. So he picks up the first one and he goes, "This is shit." And he goes drawing by drawing. Oh, poop. Excrement, dog shit. Like he ran out of nouns for poop. And by the end of it, he goes, "A copy machine could have done this.
Oh,
You you have no voice. You are not an artist. You say nothing.
Wow.
Figure out something else to do in your life. And this is the tattoo he gave me, right? He goes, because an artist, you are not. And it was like fucking Yoda saying that stuff to me. So as he closed the portfolio, I was devastated, right? No one had been that brutal and that harsh with me, wanting to be an artist, except my dad. So it was shit, my dad was right. This is the world. Father was correct, right? So I'm walking away, and the universe took pity on me, and I forgot my painting portfolio on the table. So Jules takes a portfolio, opens it, and he goes, hey, sad boy, come back. What is this? Sad boy. So I show him a painting, and again, these paintings are all about Mexican folklore and Day of the Dead and Mexican wrestling. And basically, as he goes through each painting, he goes, what is this about? And I tell him the story behind each one. Oh, it's a woman who married a coyote, and now the kids are half and half. And it's a metaphor for Mexican Americans, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I basically tell him every single painting I had a story.
Oh, wow.
And he smiled, and he went, you son of a bitch. Why? He goes, why did you do these? And I was like, well, because this is the stuff I love. And he goes, why did you do the shitty stuff?
Yeah.
I said, well, because that's what I thought you guys wanted to see. And he goes, you idiot boy. This is your voice. This is who you are. Never, whatever you do, never do the thing you think others want to see.
Wow.
And that was it.
That is.
When people tell me, like, when did you decide that you wanted to embrace your culture? That is the exact moment.
That is so great. That's awesome. Like an actual origin story.
Yeah, that's a superhero origin story. Do you feel like it's like I feel like that approach doesn't really happen anymore?
Well, I don't think that approach happens anymore, and I don't think it's good advice looking back.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of advice back then that doesn't apply to today. Like when I went to school, I was told, don't draw anime, don't draw fan art. All those things do not apply now. They are not only is how a lot of people got started, but it's how a lot of people have found success. So whenever I tell the story, I go, look, this is 1993. It was a different time. Things were very different back then. So I got in as a high school junior. He let me in immediately. My parents, being from Mexico, we didn't have enough money for me to pay for the school. And as a foreigner, you don't get financial aid that first year. Yeah. So it was heartbreaking going home and telling my dad, I got in. And he was shocked. He was like, what do you mean you got in? I said, this guy in Jules Engel, he put my name in his little book and he said, I'm in. And my dad got really scared because he was like, we can't afford for you to go there. So we talked to the school. They were like, sorry, there's no financial aid for first year students. So my dad and my grandfather had been saving for me to go to college for years. And so we only had enough money for me to go for 0.6 of a year. And I said, that's enough, right? That's enough for me. What I'm going to do is my first day. So as you guys can imagine, my last year of high school was terrible because I had already gotten into Cal Arts. I wanted to be an artist. All the classes meant nothing to me. I was just a dumb 17-year-old at that point. And I got into a lot of trouble. I got arrested for driving under the influence. I got in a lot of fights. I was like Diego Rivera for a 17-year-old. And I found my Frida Kahlo because I met Sandra in high school. I met her at a punk rock concert. And she was 2 hours late to our first date. And from the moment I met her, from the day I met her, I proposed 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
People talk about how, and this was me. When I heard love at first sight, that's bullshit. It happened to me. It literally happened to me. I saw her and I said, that's the girl I'm gonna marry. And I even pitched it to her. I said, we're gonna be the Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo of Mexican animation.
I like how you were pitching even your relationship to her.
And I told her I'm gonna get super fat, and you're gonna have a giant eyebrow, and it's gonna be great. So I go to Cal Arts first day. I sign up, and they told me, oh, you have to do a film a year, and you have to do, I think back then it was 20 units a year. So I said, all right, I only have enough money to go 0.6 of a year. So I'm going to sign up for 4 years worth of classes in 1 year. And I'm going to do 4 shorts.
Man.
And I have the power of youth and the power of Mexico in me. and my whole family is rooting for me. And my whole legacy is on me. So I start signing up for classes. And sure enough, I get sent to the dean's office. I tell him my story. He thought it was really funny. And he said, well, I'll make a deal with you, Jorge. If you Cal Arts doesn't have grades, but if you can get a high pass, because there's no pass, and high pass. If you can get a high pass in every class and you can do 2 years worth in 1 year, I will give you a reward. So we shook on it, and I worked my ass off. I became a machine. Looking back, I didn't know I was on the spectrum. I didn't know I had autism. But looking back, I think that's what that was my superpower, because I was able to hyper focus, and I was able to sort of to go, the girl of my dreams lives in Tijuana. I have my whole legacy, my whole family believing in me. This thing that would freak everybody out pressure wise, I'm going to use it, I'm going to harness it, and I'm going to work harder than anybody. Because when you get into that school, you're kind of used to being the best artist in your high school, but now you're with every best artists from every high school in the world. So you get humbled. You get humbled immediately. And there's some people, when I went, there were some people that were
even bigger pond,
had been directors in Korea who were coming to the US to get a master's. And so I was literally in classes with Korean directors that could draw 1,000 times better than any of us. So as I start figuring this stuff out, I start realizing, all right, I'm gonna study my classmates, and I'm gonna study this process. I'm gonna study the teachers. I'm gonna study all of this. And what I found was that artists, especially in art school, artists are super lazy, and artists are so easily distracted and so brilliant at not doing the stuff, right? Like that inert rebelliousness also applies to not wanting to do the assignments and not wanting to do the vegetables, right? The things that you're supposed to do. And procrastination is a freaking art form in art school. Right? I said, that's it. That's my in. I'm going to outwork everybody. I come from Tijuana. I'm 18, so I've been drinking since I'm 15. I've gotten my partying out of the way. There's nothing in LA that compares to Tijuana. So I got that out of the way. I'm not looking to hook up with anybody. The girl of my dreams lives over there. So I am here to work. And so what I did was I would get a character design assignment, and I would do 10. I would do 10 assignments. I wouldn't show them to anybody. I would self-curate, and I would pick the best one and turn that one in. So I was like, I'm going to cheat by doing more behind the scenes. And, the Chuck Jones thing where it takes 1,000 drawings to get to a good drawing. I'm going to get there as fast as I can. And I remember reading this Robert Rodriguez book that said every film student has 10 super shitty scripts inside of them. The faster they come out, the faster you get to the good stuff. So I took that literally. I took every short I made I'm going to learn editing with this one. I'm going to learn color with this one. I'm going to focus on voice acting with this one. And so by the time the first year ended, I got a high pass in every class. I wasn't able to pull off 4 shorts, but I did 3 shorts. And the school gave me a full scholarship.
Wow.
That was my reward. So after that, I said, well, if that works, I'm going to keep doing that. And I kept working. And I remember a lot of the teachers had told me, look, the best thing you can do is take classes from the whole school. A lot of people don't take advantage of that. And they just focus on their departments. But this is an art school. Take as much as you can. And a lot of classes just wouldn't give me the credits, but I didn't care. To me, it's like, who cares about the credit? I want to learn all this stuff. So I took screenwriting, I took acting. I would sit in the directing classes for live action. And I was just a sponge. I just wanted to learn. And then I would try to apply all those things to my little shorts. As time went by, a lot of my teachers would go, you keep doing all this Mexican stuff and you are not going to have a job because no one is doing this type of stuff. And I remember a teacher taking me aside and going, all right, there's a choice you have to make now. Either you get really good at your thing or you become very versatile. The risky path will be picking your own stuff, because if you only know how to do your stuff, then only you can do that. If you become versatile, you more than likely will be very employable, but you might never get to do your own thing. So I hate to put it on you at this stage, but you're going to have to pick. So as always, I said, well, I'm going to bet on me.
Yeah.
And if I fail, I'm going to fail on my terms. And if I don't get work, I want to not get work for the right reasons. And so I would get reviewed and people would literally go, I applied to Powerpuff Girls and the guy was like, yeah, man, if the girls ever go to Mexico, we'll give you a call. But no. And same thing with, Rugrats and all these TV shows would just go like, this stuff is great, but no, we don't do this stuff. And, again, this is late 90s at this point. People would go, hey, where's your non-Mexican stuff? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, your stuff for here. And I was like like my white stuff? Is that what you mean? And they're like, no, that's not what we mean. But yeah, that's what we mean.
No, but yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So one of the awesome things that happens is the CalArts has a thing called the job fair, and people come, Pixar comes and it's a huge deal, blah, blah, blah. But then you see who gets picked. You get to see all these things that become very important later in life when you start to realize, oh, it's not just talent. You have to be really good at networking. You have to be really good at working with others. And you have to be really good at presenting yourself. And you have to be really good almost to fit into the culture of the studio. Like Pixar had a type, Disney had a type, DreamWorks had a type. And you had to sort of become that type of person to be in that type of studio. So as I didn't get jobs and as I started seeing all this stuff, I super doubted. I super doubted the choices I had made. And I was like, all right, do I try to become more versatile or do I double down? And of course I doubled down, right? I was like, I'm all in. And meanwhile, my friends were worried about like, oh, I don't know if I want to work at Pixar, San Francisco's cold, or I don't know if I want to move to New York to work at Blue Sky. To me, it was like, I just want to get a job or I'm going to get deported. Like the stakes were so much different for me than for my friends. So eventually I did live action, I did stop motion, I did 2D, and computer animation wasn't my thing at all. In fact, I was kind of anti-computer animation. And then when I finished my bachelor's, CalArts and the Mexican government paid for my master's. So I said, all right, well, if somebody else is paying for this and I have to do one giant film for my master's, I'm going to embrace the thing I hate. I'm going to embrace computer animation. So I started my CalArts final film in 1997. The master's took 3 years. I took a bazillion classes in screenwriting and acting. Like I really focused at that point. And I finished my little short called Carmelo. It won the Student Emmy, which was a huge deal back then.
Oh, wow.
It opened a ton of doors. Like the window in Hollywood opened for a tiny bit. The year before that happened, I was an television academy intern because of you would submit your work in progress films, and they saw that. And so my internship the year before I graduated was at Sony Pictures for Stuart Little, the movie with the little CG mouse, the Michael J. Fox as a little mouse. And man, I was so excited. It was 1999. The movie was directed by Rob Minkoff, who had directed The Lion King. It had been written by M. Night Shyamalan. Right after The Sixth.
Really? Really?
right after this.
I didn't even know that.
Right,
That's so funny.
oh yeah,
That's so funny.
it was right after The Sixth Sense. So, and I had loved The Sixth Sense. And then the cinematographer was Guillermo Navarro, who's a Mexican DP who had shot Guillermo del Toro's movies. So I was so excited to meet all three of them. That's how naive I was. So I remember they paid me $500 for 2 months, and I had to drive. So it was $250 a month, and then I remember I had to drive about 2 hours every day to get there. And then 2 hours back.
Wow.
So I lost money doing this internship.
How did you make it work? Did you have some savings or like
I basically worked all through the school year, and I saved up just enough. And then I got family help. Like, because at some point I ran out of money. I was like, I have to eat and I have to drive.
Yes.
Like those are two things like I can't not do.
Yes.
And I'm not ashamed of it. Like I slept in my car multiple times when I was like, I literally can't afford to drive home.
Right.
It's like I either eat or drive home tonight. So that really, really sort of, again, opened my eyes. I never met Rob Minkoff, never met M. Night Shyamalan, never met Guillermo Navarro. And I learned I didn't want to be a CG animator. It just wasn't for me. I wanted to showcase my culture and tell my stories and my designs, and that was not going to happen as a CG animator.
Right.
So when I went back to school, I focused on story and design. Carmelo comes out, and it's this little short. You guys, anybody who wants to see it, it's on my website on Vimeo. It's a little short about a wooden boy. So Book of Life came from this short, who dies. The short starts on Day of the Dead. And it's about how did this little boy die? Like I'm not a cruel storyteller. I wouldn't kill a kid or plot. I basically go, this kid is already dead. How did he die? Right. So I at that point, the short wins that Emmy. My manager, who I'm still with, signs me, and he said, Jorge, this is the year 2000 now. There's people getting movies made out of their shorts. 9 at that time was in the news. Write a movie inspired by your short. So I went and I bought How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days.
Wow.
And I wrote Book of Life. I wrote a 40-page outline of Book of Life. He sent me to every studio in town. That basically the student Emmy got me in. But it wasn't enough. They would say, you're just some dumb kid out of school. There's no way we can make a movie about dead Mexicans. Like, who wants to see this? So after that, wait, do I have to press anything on your page? Or
it's at the top of the screen.
Yeah, there's like a little arrow to go to the right.
Oh yeah, I see. Holy cow! All right, you guys are already at the new page.
You're fine.
All right, so then
the story.
So then, great. So then everybody turns me down. And I get a job offer because of my computer animation experience. I start getting computer animation offers. So I got an offer to work on episode 1 in the previous department at Lucasfilm with George Lucas. So again, this is the year 2000. No one knew that movie wasn't going to be that good.
I mean, either way, who's going to turn that down, even if they knew?
Oh, I did.
You did?
So I get an offer to work on that. And I remember the lady was like, your life is about to change. Like the freaking ILM lady, the Lucasfilm lady, really, really made it sound like your life is going to change. You will be in the same room as George. And just the fact that she called him George, I was like, oh, this is crazy. And I was so excited. But then I realized, wait a second, if I go over there and I do layout and previs, that's not going to get me to where I want to go. Right. When I studied my heroes, not a single one of them came from CG animation. Not a single one came from layout. They all came from writing. They all came from story. And so that's not my path. So I remember somebody going, "Hey, your short is really sad. Why don't you make something funny?" And so I remember looking online and seeing all these, again, year 2000, seeing all these super crappy internet cartoons And as a foreigner, you get 1 year to find a job. The government gives you a thing called practical training. And if in that year you don't find work, you get deported. So my plan B was going to Lucasfilm. I got a pirate software version of Flash after spending 3 years learning Softimage and Maya and all these crazy programs. I spent two weeks learning Flash. I put up this little internet cartoon online called El Macho versus the Mariachis of Doom, which is about a Mexican wrestler and skeleton mariachis. And it got 20,000 views in one night.
Oh, wow.
Now, this is back in the day, right? This is 2000,
huge,
which was humongous.
There was probably that many people on the internet, honestly.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So this is where it all connects. My bosses at Sony, who were my internship bosses, had started a new internet division for Sony. And obviously they were looking for content. And they said, we saw your short. We want to buy it. We want to buy your short. We want to buy your show. We want to hire you. We'll give you a work visa. And we want you to write them and direct them and voice them and do the backgrounds and animate them. And the more jobs they listed, the more excited I got.
Wow. Yeah, that is really
So,
cool.
A lot, man.
Yeah.
So imagine out of school.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the greatest country in the world. They just pay you to make your own stuff. So I couldn't believe it. I remember calling the Lucasfilm recruiter and telling her, hey, I'm gonna regretfully decline the offer. I'm gonna stay here to make internet cartoons. And she, her voice turned. It was like Lord of the Rings. Like the voice of Sauron spoke to me. And she said, you will regret this the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
You will look back on this day. That's the day it all went downhill. And I was like, oh, shit.
Eyes roll back.
That's so funny.
Cut to opening night of episode 1 at midnight in Valencia. I'm there and all my friends are there. And I'm feeling like, oh, fuck. Did I make a mistake? And then the movie starts. And as soon as Jar Jar came out and started going, blah, 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 I was, the theater was silent. And I was the only guy cheering. Yeah! No regrets!
Just like rip your shirt off in the theater.
I was like, woo! This is terrible! No regrets! So I go to Sony and it was like going to CalArts and getting paid, right? No one knew how to make cartoons over there. I had made one. So they were like, make more of that. And the first one costs nothing. Literally cost me nothing to make it. So when they asked me for a budget, I said, $16,000. And literally it was just a number that popped into my head. And then later I remember a producer told me, oh, Jorge, we had $150,000 per short for you.
Oh, no.
So the lesson to students is when people ask you, how much is this going to cost? You always answer with, how much do you have? How much do you want to spend? Yeah. And then if they're like, no, you tell us, then figure out how much it is and then multiply it by 10.
That's great advice. There's also, do you feel like it's better to come up with a number like at any cost, or do you think it's also a good strategy to be like, oh, let me get back to you on that a little later? Do you feel like buying time is also, or does that make you?
Well, I mean, now what I do, or what I have been doing, is I break it down by hours. So I go, I think this will take 40 hours of animation, 40 hours of blah, blah, blah. And, union animator costs this much, but I think it'll be 3. Like now I can break that stuff down really fast. And they go, hey, how much would it cost to do a 5-minute music video? And I always go, at least $400,000. And that immediately either ends the conversation or the conversation continues from that point. But I don't waste time anymore where people are like, well, I have $10,000.
Right.
I go, yeah, you should go to a community college and find students who can do
that. Yeah.
I mean, there's someone will do it for that much. It's just not going to be more than likely a professional.
Yeah.
So then I do these shorts and it was great, right? It was literally doing voices, writing, all this stuff. And what happens in Hollywood, as you guys know, once you do something with a studio, a little box somewhere gets checked. So I became a creator. You created a show for Sony. Sony's a big studio. You are directing these little shorts. You're officially a director. You're voicing this character. You're officially a voice actor, right? All these things became real, even though it was a mom and pop place where no one knew what they were doing. Because it said Sony Pictures at the door, it was real. So this idea, and I always heard it in school where people go, fake it till you make it. I think it's perception is reality. So when people ask you, what do you do? You have to say it with conviction, right? I'm a director. I'm a writer. You just have to say it. And if you don't believe it, no one believes it. So you got to say it and you got to believe it. And as with everything, once you do it, you are it. So when people tell me like, I want to be a writer. All right, send me your script. Well, I haven't written any. Well, you're in trouble. Right? It's like people who go, I want to be a character designer. But I haven't done any character designs. It's like, well, how's that going to work?
Yeah, I mean, I run into that a lot. Like, I feel like, especially as time goes on, like hearing your story is amazing and it's incredibly inspiring. And like, I think the thing that keeps popping up in my head is just the word discipline, because I think you had a goal in mind and you stuck to it. And anytime there was a hurdle, you said, fuck that hurdle. And you just like figured it out like as soon as possible. And like, I know you said you wanted to get into, before we started, you like getting into the nitty gritty of things and the industry and everything. And like, your story, is great because of that, because you keep pushing through all these obstacles. And something that always kind of rubs me the wrong way with a lot of younger students and people who are trying to get into animation is it feels like over time it's become the cool thing to do, and it's like social media currency to some degree, where it's like a cool thing to declare like I'm doing this, but it doesn't always feel genuine. It doesn't always feel like it's something that people are really pursuing for their own self-fulfillment or whatever. And if you think this is about you, it probably isn't. If you listen to this podcast, this isn't about you. Subscribe to our Patreon. Yeah, and like, but it's a thing, and I see it happen a lot, and I know that those people don't really mean it, because I ask them the same things. And have you done this? Have you started animating? Have you done a short? Have you done anything? And usually the answer is no. Not usually, but often enough the answer is no. And it's disappointing, because it's like, well, when are you gonna start? Like, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what kind of feedback to give people when they haven't even started putting in the effort. And it's tough because I know that like it's hard to take on any project yourself. It's hard to start things a lot of the time. It's just it's hard. But like, I think your story is proof that like, when you set your mind to things will happen. Like, you have to just do the thing. You have to do the damn thing before anybody else gives you permission to do it. That's what I take away from it. I think that
I was gonna say, just like listening to it, we're talking about motivation. I was like recently watching a YouTube video that was talking about motivation and what it really is, and it's from the psychiatrist Dr. K. And he says, motivation is the ability to keep a thought in your mind. Yeah, that's really all it is. It's like, if you could keep a thought in your mind for a long period of time, you stay motivated. And I think that's so great, because I feel like for you, Jorge, you had all these like, not only just like you were able to stay motivated, but you had really high stakes. I think really high stakes also help stay motivated.
Stakes can help.
I mean, honestly, and I dabble with this stuff, and I always warn people when I talk about this, especially students. This is dangerous stuff, the stuff I'm about to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know it doesn't apply to everybody. So I take this with a grain of salt. And again, it might be part of my autism might be the reason this works for me. But a thing I do, which is very controversial, is I figured out that there's artists that are motivated by the carrot of success, right? They put something in front of them. and they go, if I work really hard, or if I do blah, 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 I'm going to get my show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get money. I'm going to get adoration. I'm going to get respect of my peers, blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever the thing that fulfills you, if you're smart enough to figure out what that is, you go, if I do this, I'll get that. That never worked for me. Because of where I'm from, because I was raised, and because of my situation, mine was backwards. Mine was, if I don't get this, I'm fucked. If I don't get this, I'm get deported. If I don't get this, I've let down my family. I let down the girl of my dreams. I let down my son. I let down the legacy of my parents, my grandfather. I let down my country. I let down every single person who believed in me. And that motivates me.
Right.
That's interesting.
So it's using failure and using the negative to fuel you works for some people. And if you can channel that stuff, it's so powerful.
It's very powerful.
I was
all three of us are immigrants. I just realized.
Yeah, that's true.
We all have that in common.
Yeah, and you know, and again, it's one of those things where if you focus on, if you accept the negative, and you accept the bad stuff, then it makes the good stuff even better. There's a beautiful belief in Mexico. You know, this poet Octavio Paz talks about it, that every Mexican, right? Mexicans have a special relationship with death, right? And one of the cool things is he speaks about how every Mexican has death in their ear, whispering very softly, "Live." Right?
I think,
because it's gonna come to an end, and you gotta make it count. And having death everywhere, having skulls everywhere, having reminders of people who passed away everywhere, will only motivate you to live even more, and to experience even more, and to be less scared, and to take more chances. And I think that, at least for me, has not only worked, but it's done wonders. It's hurt me. It's hurt me in you know, obviously it's hurt my body, and it's hurt my mind, and it's hurt my soul. But so would anything else.
Yeah. Life is just hard. You know, if there's not going to be nobody has an easy path unless they're like born rich and never do anything. I don't know. But like any kind of pursuit worth pursuing is gonna hurt you in some way. And so it really just depends on what you want out of life. And I'm obviously not Mexican, but I also have this like horrible fear of death and mortality. And like,
see, your honorary Mexican gene right there.
Yes, finally. Yes, you heard it here. That's coming from two people now. It's my best friend.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm slow. I'm like, it's like a punch card, and eventually, you know, maybe. But yeah, and so it does. It motivates me. I don't think we ever talked about that on the show, but I think that's.
I think you know what's.
Yeah.
Sorry, you know what's funny? Like we're just kind of we're casually talking about death on the podcast. It's funny to me because it's something that I've noticed it's a subject that is not really, you can't really talk about like lightly, I guess, in the US. It's something that I don't know. It's something that was like very surprising to me because like, what you're saying is like it's part of life, so you kind of have to be thinking about it, right? Like it's just I don't know, for me I'm always thinking I want to make sure I don't have any regrets when my day comes, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking is like, I want to make sure that like when the day comes, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm like, you know, my ghost isn't going to stay on Earth or whatever, you know, kind of, I'm just going to be.
At least you believe in that. I don't even have that.
No, I mean, like, you know, it's just a funny joke, but I just want to make sure that, but it's funny because a lot of people are like very uncomfortable talking about anything that pertains to it, especially. Yeah. So it's a very interesting thought.
Well, and if you guys think about it in animation, we have an expiration date.
We do, right? Like really.
At a certain point, you are out of touch and you can't do it anymore. You can keep up. People are getting better and faster. Like, that's a given.
Right.
It happened to the generation before us. It will happen to the generation after us. We're all going to get older. Mm-hmm. So pretending none of these things are real, pretending none of these things will happen to you, I got some bad news for you. So if you accept these things as the math of life that they are, in a weird way, it liberates you.
It does.
Because it puts it in focus.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the flip side of the argument of like, it doesn't matter how old you are. I think that that's all true. Like, anybody can start at any time. But I think that it's always motivated me to know that I have this thing looming. And for me, it's obviously like, I don't want to burn myself out because I also want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy, my time with my girlfriend, with my family, with my friends. All those things are super important. But it's like V was saying, like, yeah, I want to make sure that I like do the things that I set out to do. And if I fail at them, then I want to make sure that I've put like 150% of my effort into it along the way within reason, without sacrificing the relationships that mean something. Yeah, like for me, it's like a serious like fear. Like if I occasionally think about it, it like sends me into panic, and I have to like quickly, dodge out of the way of those thoughts because like it's awful. I don't have a religion to fall back onto, and so like it's a big motivator for me. I decided to use it as a motivator, so I think that's really interesting that you mentioned.
Well, and the other one that I think also helps is, at least it helped me a lot, was putting yourself in this idea that it will all be great. Then you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at your heroes and you study their careers, because that's what I did. I would go, all right, Tim Burton, I'm going to go backwards. Brad Bird, I'm going to go backwards. Henry Selick, I'm going to go backwards. And you see all the falls, and you see all the things that didn't work out, the movies that never happened, the failures, because all those guys have had failures, and all your heroes have had failures. That's when you start going, oh, it's not about the results,
right?
It's about the process.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I remember figuring it out pretty early and going, all right, I have to fall in love with the process, because if my love is based on the result, then I'm only going to get the result every few years.
Yes.
And someone else will determine
if
the result is good.
Yes.
So I'm going to give away that power to someone else.
Right.
If I fall in love with the process, then it's on me.
I hope people
right, because I can do this stuff on myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's been a really tough thing for me to learn, and you've told me that before, and it's hard to get, at least for me, it's hard to get there. And I'm definitely better at it than I was before, especially in the last year, because of the rejections and all these things. I think it was just a lot happened at once. And so I had to really, really be like, oh, Jorge was right. I was like, Jorge was right. I gotta just like worry about the process more. Cause there's so little control that we actually have over how things work out, success, whatever. When you're trying to deal with networks and you're trying to deal with other people, even just, it's impossible. So it's like you have to do as much as you can within your means. And
I think about you all the time, because you made a brilliant short, and
thanks.
It didn't go to become a series in Nickelodeon, and that has fucking nothing to do with your short being good or bad. Your short is brilliant. You're a brilliant artist. The fact that at that time, while a bazillion regime changes were happening and a ton of executives were getting fired and Nickelodeon was imploding, I know it's super hard advice to hear, but you can't take that stuff personal because it had nothing to do with you.
Yeah. I have come to accept that. And I guess like to anybody that's out there that's working on pitching something, or if they're even lucky to be further along in that pipeline and that process, like you are most likely going to fail. And I think it's important to accept that, because I had a hard time accepting it. I made a lot of excuses. It's just sort of like it's not gonna happen to me kind of thing. And maybe you can speak to that too, Jorge, from earlier in your career. But it's like you have to accept that it's probably not gonna happen. Like it's just not.
Well, here's what's great about failure. You can learn nothing from success.
That's
literally
true.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You only learn from failure. So I'll give you an example of how great failure has been for me. My internet cartoon, right? So we're there, 9/11 happens at Sony, and they for some reason that affected the entertainment industry, especially the .com. There's the bubble burst. So they canceled the division where I was at. Had nothing to do with how good or bad my cartoons were. And at that point, I lost my work visa. So it was one of those moments where we all got called in, and I was told, everybody go home at 3 p.m. We're going to erase the hard drives. We're shutting down this division. Take everything you think you deserve. So I got really excited. I remember I called Sandra. We lived across the street from Sony, and I said, bring 2 shopping carts. We deserve everything. So we filled those shopping carts with Cintiqs and computers, and I even took my chair. And that's how we set up our studio. And that was the first lesson. When things go wrong, take advantage of what's left and build from that.
Absolutely.
So after that, I remember we had a pilot at Disney because I had a show at Sony. So thanks to Sony getting canceled, the Disney people were like, "Oh, you're available. Come pitch us something." So then I pitched at Disney. They were interested in this property, and then immediately Nickelodeon said, "Oh, Disney's interested? Come pitch to us." And Nickelodeon basically put El Tigre in development as I guess as an insurance in case our Disney show, Pepe the Bull, became the next SpongeBob, right? They were like, we want to be able to have one of yours. So we worked at Disney for a year, met a ton of great people, and we tested the show. And again, I'm naive and I don't know any better. We were the first Flash show over there. The show did not get picked up for series. And looking back, thank God, because I think it would have ruined me and ruined us, because I wasn't ready to run a show. Our show didn't get picked up. The show that got picked up hired all of us because they saw what we did, and they were like, you guys know Flash. Teach us how to do Flash. So we all went and worked on a show called The Buzz on Maggie. And I remember working on that show and basically going, I'm going to learn how to make a show. Now that I'm working on a TV show, I'm going to learn. And so I learned a ton. So by the time El Tigre tested and it got picked up, I was way more ready. Way more ready. El Tigre happens, and man, we killed ourselves in El Tigre. I didn't have a kid. I worked every Saturday, half a Sunday. I'm like, it's my first show. I'm going to kill myself on this thing. I didn't give myself a job on the show. I basically said, I'm going to take all the money and spend it on the show. And so I did a ton of jobs, which was, looking back, was really bad because I should have paid myself a little more, and I probably should have given myself more credit, but I didn't. It was for the good of the show. And while I was working on El Tigre, buzz started about the show being good, potentially good. And I remember DreamWorks called me and said, hey, we want to do a Day of the Dead movie, and we love what we've seen from El Tigre. Would you be interested in designing this movie? And I was like, yeah, that's, I've never been busier in my life. But if someone makes a Day of the Dead movie without me, I might just kill myself. So, and by the way, when I said that, they didn't laugh. So thank you for laughing.
I mean, those jokes always land for me, but that's what we were saying earlier. It's like you don't talk about death in America, right?
Yeah. So I get a call again, and they go, hey, we don't have a story. Do you know anybody with a story? And I said, yeah, I have a story. And I remember at that time I was a little cocky because El Tigre was going so well. I took the same document, literally the same document, 40-page document that had all their DreamWorks coverage written on top of it. That said, this is macabre, this is weird, bullfighting ? Like all their criticisms. I ripped out that page. I printed a new page with a new date, and I turned that in. And I got the call like 2 days later. We think this is inventive and magical and whimsical. Same exact studio, by the way. So El Tigre comes out. I start working at DreamWorks basically at night while I worked on the show during the day. I killed myself on the show. The show, we only did one season, only 24 episodes. They spun it like it was 2 seasons. It wasn't 2 seasons. It was just 1 season. Well, it won 7 Emmys.
Wow.
In 1 season. Yeah. So it kind of broke the record. They don't like to talk about it because the show was canceled after that 1 season. So the show gets canceled. The reason we were given, which is completely fair, by the way, was wherever there's basically the 2 coasts and in the Southwest, it did really well. But in the middle of America, they apparently did not like foreigners, and they definitely did not like Mexicans. And back then, Nickelodeon would just give you the hate mail.
Really? Whoa.
Right. So I loved it. So I'm like, I want to learn. And the hate mail was like, why would I watch a show about my gardener? And ladies going like, we like Dora because Dora was submissive.
Oh my God.
So all that stuff, I would just pin it on the wall.
Wow.
I'm like, I can't convince those people.
That's I so interesting.
your fortitude is off the chart, man.
Yeah,
you're just being able to like take that. I don't
you're
know.
The real anime protagonist.
Yeah, you're a shonen protagonist. Yes. I hope you know
that. Sandra hated all that stuff, and to this day, Tigre got canceled in 2009. She still hasn't forgiven Nickelodeon.
Oh,
She took it super personal.
I don't blame
for me, it was like, hey, thank you for spending, $20 million on our idea. Thank you. Like, on to the next thing. So the show gets canceled. DreamWorks at that point goes, the way Hollywood works, of course, is if you're on something successful, you have a lot of weight. If you are now on something that's not as successful, you lose your weight instantly.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like the day after we got canceled, the tone changed at DreamWorks in every meeting. It's like they knew. And so at that point, I get called in. 3 movies were going to come out: B Movie, Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon. They had shown me all 3. Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon, in my opinion, were brilliant. B Movie, not so much. B Movie comes out. The people in development who were there, I'm not going to name them, got removed. They brought in new people, and they looked at my project, and I was given 5 giant notes in order to move forward. And they knew my show was canceled, so they could now muscle me around. And they went, in order for your movie to move forward here at DreamWorks, we need you to, it can't take place in Mexico. The main character can't die. You can't have any bullfighting.
Yeah.
And here's the last 2, which are freaking amazing. We want it to take place in present day urban New York, in Washington Heights. And I didn't know what that was, right? And the last one, this is 2009. We're going to pair you up with Lin-Manuel Miranda. And this is going to be a hip hop salsa musical.
Okay.
So this is before Hamilton, before In the Heights was off Broadway, still hadn't hit Broadway and won the Tony. So I quit on the spot, right? It was one of those, like, I know they know my show's canceled. They don't think I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk. My movie, this is not my movie.
Right.
I literally went, you tell Lin-Manuel Miranda that she can have her own movie, but this is not I didn't even know it was a guy. So I walked out of there, and I remember going, my show's canceled. I just walked away from a movie. My wife is pregnant. Yes. I can't wait to see how I get out of this one.
The struggle.
Right?
Oh, wow.
That is the harnessing of failure and it's like how am I gonna get out of this one, right? So at that point we did another pilot at Disney. It didn't go. We started another pilot at Nick. It doesn't go. And then Book of Life happened. So if anybody's doing the math, if my Sony show hadn't been killed, I wouldn't have gone to Disney. If my Disney pilot would have gone through, I never would have done El Tigre. And if El Tigre hadn't been canceled after one season, I wouldn't have gotten the Book of Life. So the ladder is failures.
Right.
Thanks to this happened. And obviously I have friends who are on shows that have been on shows for 20 years. And that's probably it. They're coming in a career because that's all they're going to do. Right. If you've been drawing on The Simpsons for 26 years, you can pretty much only draw like The Simpsons.
Right.
So that all those failures have helped me. Once Book of Life started going through, again, in a tiny studio called Real Effects in Dallas, goes, oh, your $160 million movie? We don't have that. We have $25 million. But we think we can make your movie for $50 million. So help us get the other 25. Ooh. You have to move to Dallas and you get 1 year to write the script and 1 year to do visual development. And then you're going to pitch the movie to get a producer. Wow. And I remember at the time I was like, all right. I was working doing shorts at Warner Brothers on the Mad cartoon. And I remember going like, I can just stay here and keep making these weird, funny little shorts and get my union hours and just keep going. Or we can fucking risk it all and go to a studio that's never made a movie and go to a state we never lived in. And I remember sitting down with my wife, and at this point, our kid is 2. And I told her, I'm like, look, it's all or nothing. Every success we've ever had was because we took crazy risks. What do you think we should do? And she said, I'll start packing. Right or die. Right? Worst thing that can happen is we go over there and your movie doesn't get made and we move back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we don't go, we will live with that regret.
Yep.
And when things go bad, you might go, fuck, why didn't we go?
Right.
Yeah.
So we went over there. We spent a year working on the script. I got to write it with my El Tigre co-writer, Doug Langdale. I got to hire a production designer, an art director. We did this maquettes. We did all of this. And then I pitched Guillermo, right? I pitched Guillermo del Toro the movie after 15 cancellations. I finally got to him. I finally got to his house to pitch in the movie. It was a terrible, terrible pitch. But at the end of it, he said, hey, I have 2 daughters. We would get up and watch El Tigre on Saturday mornings. And we've been watching your mad shorts. I know exactly who you are. I know your sense of humor. And more than anything, I know how much you love our country. Of course, I'm going to produce your movie.
Oh my gosh.
So it was thanks to El Tigre, right?
Wow.
Literally, thanks to El Tigre, Guillermo gets involved. And then making Book of Life basically changed my life. It was the hardest, most difficult thing in the freaking universe. But it all came back to me tenfold.
Wow.
And then all was worth it. It made all the sacrifice because I don't think you can get anything good without sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I know this is a tough industry, and I know people keep saying, it's built on it's built on toxic masculinity. Yes, everything is built on toxic masculinity. It's not just our industry. I think it's humanity's built on toxic masculinity. So you have to accept that there are things that are going to be opposing you at every point of your career, and you have to accept that there's going to be struggles that you will lose.
Yeah.
And that not only is it okay, but that's a good thing, because when you get back up, fuck, you're going to be stronger.
Yeah.
And I know it's a cliche, but it really is. You look at the people who got up, who went down, went down swinging. Those are the ones you root for.
You don't hear about the failures enough, and we're trying to highlight that more on the show. And I would like, you've definitely talked about it plenty, but I also would love to ask, just like, and this kind of ties into a question we always ask, which is how you deal with creative block. But I don't think you really have a problem with being creative. It seems like that just pours out of you. I want to ask you a variation on that, which is like,
all right,
how does it feel when you're in those lows and when things have been going wrong, and how do you pull yourself out of it? Like, what helps you to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to push through it and kind of keep going?
My wife hates it, but I basically compare myself to people who are worse off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean in the arts, I mean in life. And I have friends who lost a limb, or family members who have cancer, or potentially could die. And I go there. I immediately go there, and I go, what the fuck am I complaining about? Well, my problems are nothing compared to those problems. And all my problems are ego. It literally is ego, right? Oh, my feelings are hurt. Yeah, but that's just your feelings. And I know it hurts, but I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die from someone not liking my cartoon. I'm not going to die from someone not, funding my $50 million movie.
Yeah.
So I snap. And again, it might be my generation. You guys are younger than me, but Gen X, we were kind of built for failure. We were kind of built for this idea was, you work really hard and you fucking party just as hard. And maybe, just maybe, you might make it.
Right. Yeah.
That's what our generation was taught.
Yeah. There is a big shift, I think, over time. And everyone, growing up, or maybe like in our early 20s, there was this stigma of like, you guys are the blue ribbon generation, and like you were always handed all these special awards. And it's like, well, first of all, we didn't ask for this. And second of all, it has been nothing but a burden, because we're all we've heard is success stories. That's all we've ever been programmed with. And so we're not equipped for failure. We're not equipped for things not working out. And you're also kind of seeing it, I think, play out in real time, where everyone's, because of all kinds of things happening in the world, like everyone feels like a lot of us are not in the place we should be. I sure feel that way, comparing to previous generations. But it's like, that can happen too. And I think it's important to know how to bounce back from that. And I don't know if we were really taught how to that well. It kind of depends on where you come from, of course. And the next generation might be doing a better job of it, because they're growing up in such awful circumstances, and there's constant like turmoil, that I feel like Gen Z and maybe even the generation after them are going to be a little bit more resilient and like quick to recover and bounce back from stuff, because they've had to, because they lived through a pandemic in the middle of their youth, so yeah, it's interesting to me that I think there is something to that sort of generational divide in the approach to things. We have some good questions to ask.
I have also like a quick question that I want to ask you, Jorge, if you and let me know if you want to talk about it or not. But I was wondering, you were talking about being diagnosed as autistic. How did that come about for you, and kind of how do you that
was actually the question I was going to ask from someone.
Really? Exactly. All right. Well, I didn't even see. I'm really
so the question it's exactly that. The question is from @BlueStarCharmer. As a fellow artist on the spectrum, how are you able to be productive despite the challenges? And are your coworkers and bosses understanding or accommodating? So that can kind of fold in on what V said.
All right. So long story short is I was not diagnosed until I was 40. My son was 2.5 years old when he was diagnosed. And one of the issues we had with him was my parents, who I'm very close with, would see my son do things and they would go, wait, what? He's autistic? That's exactly how you were.
Oh.
And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, you didn't talk till you were like almost 5 years old. And you got held back in school 2 years, and you were, a lot of people thought you were dumb and you couldn't handle stuff. You had a hard time focusing and concentrating. And I was like a C student up until CalArts. When I found my thing, when I found my tribe, basically, that's when something clicked inside of me. But my last years of high school, I would just listen in class and I would remember everything. So as long as the teachers, as long as the test had the stuff that the teacher spoke, I could pass the class. So I depended on good teachers, basically. And I could just remember things. And I would I would remember movies, whole movies. I would remember everything, for good and for bad, right? Because that's I always talk about that. That's a negative too, because it means you remember the good times, and you remember, and you definitely remember the bad times.
Yeah,
they stay with you forever. So having a memory like this, not always a good thing. So we dealt with our son going to therapy and going through all the stuff. He's high functioning autistic. That's when I said, you know what? I want to know if I'm on the spectrum, because I'm finding myself relating to him and remembering things, and being in school and being told certain things and being insulted about certain things, and then just being able to emotionally, everybody on the spectrum is completely different, but I was able to really, I had a hard time controlling my temper and my anger early on until I figured it out. And then I was able to sort of control my emotions really well. I was able to not take it personally. I was able to shut it off. I think that's why criticism doesn't affect me, because I'm really good at separating the work from me.
Right.
Like, and if people insult me, same thing. It's like, well, these are just words.
That's really helpful. That's
yeah. There's no weight. Sure. There's no weight to any of those things. It's like, insulting me and my culture is like, it's like a 10-year-old telling me I'm a poo-poo head. It's the same thing. It has zero weight. So I tested online, which is what most people tend to do. And at every test, they tell you at the end, you're not diagnosed until you go to a specialist, right? So I tested it. I did the test for the US, the test for Mexico, the test for Spain, the test for England, and there's online tests for all this stuff. And all four said, yeah, you're probably on the spectrum. So I found a specialist in Dallas, and they tested me. They basically test your family, they test your significant other or your partner, and everybody gets questions about you. And it's really interesting. A lot of the questions were very specific about the way I interacted with people, the way I grew up. And so when I was finally diagnosed, it's called, my diagnosis is 2E, twice exceptional, which means I'm really good at certain things and I'm not so good at other things. And the way my brain works is I can, I guess one of my talents is empathy. I can really put myself in somebody else's place, and I really study people, which I think comes in really handy in animation.
Right, yes.
And dealing with the personalities in animation. And the other thing I realized was, I'm going to have to guess. I've been working in the industry 20 years. I'm going to guess 50% of everybody I've worked with is on the spectrum.
I was gonna say,
they will never.
A lot of what you're saying. So I went through this earlier this year, because like I was reading about it, and a lot of the symptoms I related to. I don't know if symptoms is the right word, but a lot of the sort of characteristics I related to, and I don't think I am. I've spoken to a therapist about it, and he didn't seem to think that I was, but I relate to a lot of what you're saying. The sort of like the separating of things. It's like I do get my feelings hurt, but there's a lot of other stuff. Like I'm really good at picking up on like people's body language and stuff, and there's like little things because I sort of see everything in patterns, and yeah, it's like the empathy where it's like really hard for me to, when anytime somebody starts talking about how shitty somebody was, I immediately want to like, I can sort of project where that other person might have been thinking, and put myself in their shoes. And it's hard for me to be like, yeah, that guy sucks. Cause like, I'm like, but maybe they like have their own reasons. But those are just a few things. And yeah, I don't know if I am. I don't want to make that claim, but it's interesting you bring that up, because I'm sitting here like listening to you, and I'm like, man, I really relate to a lot of this. Like I understand that, because I'm very like logic minded, and I also have had problems with anger in the past, and I've also kind of learned how to deal with it and process it better. But like, yeah, a lot of similar things, and so I think it's important to talk about and for other people to hear as well.
I've also found that in my whole life, the things that a lot of people warn me would be weaknesses turn out to be my strengths, right? So I was told,
totally,
if you only do stuff about your culture, you're going to be limiting yourself. Well, guess what? It did the opposite. If you find out you're autistic, it might stop you from doing stuff. I think if anything, it really helped me to go, all right, I have this thing. I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to use it to harness my focus even more. As my dad would joke with me, like, use your giant autistic brain to get the good stuff.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
And pretend, don't let it, early on I was warned by my representation, like, you can't come out of the closet, the autism closet. And I was like, but hold on, what do you think is going to happen at this point? Right? Like, it's not like I could understand early in my career. Back then, it was a little more taboo. I think now, the Tesla guy just said he was,
and Dan Harmon also. So
yeah, Dan Harmon, especially in animation. I mean, come on, there's so many of us. I don't think it matters anymore.
No,
I think if anything, people just expect you to be really, really productive and really good at focusing. Yeah. So that's the negative now. It's like, oh, he's autistic. He doesn't need to take a break.
Yeah. Do you you can answer this if you want, but do you feel like, because like the masking is sometimes a part of being on the spectrum and people talk about it. And do you feel like you have kind of a knack for being in a room or talking to people and knowing specifically how they want to see you and giving them that? Is that something that happens to you?
Oh, absolutely. One of the best pieces of advice I got from Guillermo del Toro, he gave me this advice for online, and I kind of apply it to I apply it to real life. But he said, all right, Jorge, you're going to create a character. And this character is you. And this character will exist online, and he will exist in social media, and he will exist for interviews, and he will exist for press. When compliments come, they go to him. And when insults and criticism come, they also go to that avatar. And they stay there, and you separate you from that person.
That is so smart. I love that. I think it's because it's something that I think would help so many people to hear that piece of advice. But also, also it's just something that I kind of wonder about too, how when you talk about being a person in the room, the person they expect you to be, et cetera, it's something that I really understand and relate to, because it's happened to me a couple of times when I was at studios, and I could tell that I was saying things or doing things that people did not want me to do, but weren't telling me that they didn't want me to say or do these things. And I was just so taken aback. And obviously after a little bit you get let go, because it's they're well, there's something with you that's not right for us, but they don't tell you what. And then I'm right. And then I was just what is it? It's just so, it's almost at the tip of your fingers, but you can't really grasp it. So I mean, the good thing, like you said, the failures and stuff, the good thing about them is that I'm very problem solving oriented. So I'm well, if I got let go, it's because I'm French and I don't know the American culture. So
it's because you're French.
I read all of the books about American culture, and believe it or not, it really helped. How to Win Friends and Influence People has helped me so much.
Really?
It has helped me so much, because there's so many things I didn't understand at all. I thought that, I really thought that, because I always thought if there's a problem, you have to talk about it to solve it. That was always what I thought. But then I read this book and I realized, oh, you shouldn't always do that. You shouldn't always talk about the problems. So reading the book has helped me understand, wait, you have to be a character, the character he's telling you to be in this book. because that's the character people expect you to be. And then it kind of clicked. I was like, whoa, okay, like, you know, and I don't know what you're talking about right now. Like, makes a lot of sense to be like, oh yeah, this is your business person, your business avatar. You send him, them, she.
Avatars.
Yeah, you send them to war and you watch them get but they, you know, it's, I think that's really, I love that, the way that you said that. It's all about them, it's not about you.
How much of that do you guys think is also, again, us being immigrants and us kind of having to adapt to a culture that we didn't grow up in? Because like there was two versions right off the bat. There was two versions of me, because there's a version that my parents would see and the version that they kind of raised, and then there was the version that I had at school where I was trying to fit in. And so over time, I always felt really stunted growing up, and like I was behind everybody. And I don't know if that was, I still to this day don't know if that was a language thing for me or a cultural thing or just a brain thing. But yeah, that kind of, I think that's where the split happened initially for me, is like I separated these two personalities. I don't know.
But I mean, the truth is we are all different versions of ourselves.
Yeah. Depending
on where we are.
Right.
Mm-hmm. When you're with your parents, you're one person. When you're significant other, you're one person. When you're at work, you're another person. Mm-hmm. When you're on a fucking plane, you're a different person. And that, to me, it's like you're creating a version of yourself. What version are you going to put out there at all times? Mm-hmm. And the moment you can come to terms with, because it is about coming to terms. Mm-hmm. The moment you can come to terms with, I don't have to impress anyone. It's really about being the best version of me,
right?
For me, not for others. I think that's when the freedom starts, and I think and it comes with age. I hate to say it, where you get a little older, a little wiser about what's really important, and the things that it's like before you turn 20, the things that you thought were really important, they seem trivial in your 20s. Same thing in your 30s. You look back at your 20s and you're like, wow, I really thought that was important. And
it keeps changing too, every decade.
And the game, when you realize that you are the game and you're not playing the game, that's the switch.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. That's something. When I was having a hard time when I was about to turn 30, and it's because I had set up all these goals for myself, and have a show before you're 30. Like, what a stupid thing that was. Don't anybody do that to themselves.
Yeah, that's terrible, by the way.
But
to put an expiration date in any of these terrible things.
Well, it's also because it's again, going back to the generational thing. It's like, how many fucking 30 under 30 lists do we get blasted with? And so like,
oh yeah, those are terrible.
I got really conditioned to be like, if I don't make it by 30, and you hear about all the outliers, the Rebecca Sugars and people who just got their show early. They just got lucky, and and they managed to get a green light when they were in their mid 20s. And so I had a really hard time with it, and like my hairline started receding, and I was just like, oh no, I'm gonna die soon. It was a whole thing. But I like went through this character, this shonen training montage where I was like, I'm gonna hit my 30s the way I wanted to hit my 30s, and I started like working out a lot, and I updated my whole wardrobe. I like really started doing stuff with my band, and like now I'm 2 years into my 30s, and I'm like exactly the person I think I wanted to be. Like it took some effort, took a lot of effort. But it's never too late. It's never too late to like upgrade yourself, upgrade your avatar, and grow into the person you want to be. But it's not gonna always happen by itself. Like you have to put in that effort.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
everything takes effort, not just animation.
Everything takes effort.
Yeah.
Everything that worth wanting definitely takes effort. If it was easy, then you wouldn't want it. At Axe Today asked, what do you look for in creative collaborators? Since I think they mean like people can't always make animation on the scale of TV or film alone. So are there any specific traits or qualities you look for in people to work with, or do you generally accept any people open to your ideas?
Uh, do you think they mean like when we're hiring people? What we're looking?
Yeah, I think when you're hiring. Yeah.
One of the weird things I I admire a lot of people and I look up to a lot of people. But at the same time, I'm a character designer. So if people send me their character design portfolios, I'm going to be really impressed, but I'm not going to fire myself to hire somebody else. Like, this is the thing I love. Same thing with, when people go like, well, can you produce my thing? I go, I want to produce my thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm basically looking for people I'm looking for people who are either already doing something that fits with what I'm about to make, or I'm looking for people to do things that are coming from a different point of view that will make my thing more unique. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. So on my end, the three, it's about Mesoamerica, right? Mm-hmm. So before it was announced, no one knew what it was. I would go on Instagram, I would go on Twitter, and I would literally look up any artist who's already doing that stuff. Mm-hmm. Who is doing the Mesoamerican stuff because they love it. Mm-hmm. That's who I hired. And then I would go, all right, who is working on shows that I really admire? And I would figure out who did what. So I was like Mr. Robot. I would watch episodes of cartoons, I would look at the credits, I would talk to the directors, I would talk to the showrunners, and I would go, hey, that Ninja Turtles fight, who did that? And they would just tell me. Mm-hmm. And there's honor amongst showrunners and directors, where if you have a badass team member, you go out of your way to let other people know. Mm-hmm. And so I would say Maya and the three, every single person in Maya and the three, on the board side, on the design side, was either someone we tracked down based on their work. We didn't test a single person. I don't believe in testing. To me, the test is, I want to see what you've done. What sucks about that is it's really hard to find new people because you're not really taking chances.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that, at the same time, is, and this is a shitty thing to say, but then you got to do something so we can find you. Like, your student short has to be amazing. We can't just take a chance on you just for the good of mankind. That's not how this works.
Well, you got to have a body of work.
Right? Yeah. You got to have the work. You got to have the work done. And then because I'm an immigrant, I like working with people from other countries. And I like seeing, on Maya, we had people from Korea, from Wales, from Japan, Paraguay, Brazil. Like, literally, I wanted to see what someone from another country thought of this universe and thought of this world. And I love anime, and I love stop motion, and I love all animation. So I wanted to have people who had worked on all those things and bring that to this. And I really believe that if you work with the same people over and over, that's bad for everybody. Mm-hmm. You gotta dance with different artists, and you gotta keep it fresh, and you gotta keep reinventing it. And I always talk about this idea that the moment we're getting comfortable, I think that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
My dad, again, my tough Mexican dad. This is great advice he gave me, but it was very painful. After we had done Book of Life, and after we come back, and I started working, and I, was working on a Lego movie for Warner Brothers. I was making really good money, and I was getting really complacent. I was getting really. We lived in an apartment at that time in Burbank, and we had paid it off. Again, as an immigrant, I was like, I don't want to owe any money to anybody, and I want to be self-sufficient, and I want to have a, fuck you money, so that if I don't have to work on anything I don't like, right? The classic, those are the classic things I thought were important. And I was like, I have a kid, I can't take these chances, right? There's literally a kid that I have to worry about. And I remember my dad sitting down with me and going, you fucked up. And I was like, what do you mean? I paid off my thing. I have no debts. I have fuck you money. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm sad. And he's like, no, you fucked up. You have no more need.
Oh, yeah. Huh? Mm-hmm.
There's no more fear. And he was right. He was completely right. And because I had no fear, I would just quit jobs the moment it got even a tiny bit tough because I was like, Mom, I don't need this. I'm out. So then I made a giant choice, and I said, you know what? The things that I have gone the best in my life have happened at the worst moments because things were rough. Right. So when my internet canoe failed, that's when I sold El Tigre. When El Tigre failed, that's when I sold Book of Life. I need to give myself another monster behind me. So we bought this crazy house, the house that I'm living in now, and I have a mortgage again, and I now live in fear of this mortgage, the ultimate fear. And I gotta tell you guys, I've never been more creative and motivated in my life because of this fear.
You know, that's really funny you mentioned that. I've noticed something recently. It's with me, which is sort of similar, but on a different like angle. It's like, I feel like whenever I'm not working, I lose structure. Like I have too much free time that I don't know what to do with. And then I just don't do nothing. But when I'm on a show that is challenging, I get very creative because I'm like challenged throughout the day. And then I'm like, ooh, I have this idea. I can do that, or I could do this other thing. And in that sense, it's like, it's not with the money, but it's with like your like knowing that you have a challenge that kind of pushes you to keep doing stuff. I don't know. I feel like that's something that I realized recently. I'm like, maybe I just need to keep working all the time.
I mean,
you know,
there's just more at stake.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll give you guys the example. So I had when I had a kid, my dad sat me down and he's like, all right, you're going to be a father. Now what? I said, well, Dad, now I'm going to stop taking chances and I'm going to take the safer route because a little cute baby depends on me. And he said, oh, Jorge, did I raise a coward? And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, every success you've ever had is because you took risks. If you don't take risks because of your baby, you're going to be using your family as an excuse. And you're going to resent them if things don't go well. How fucking dare you put that on them?
Yeah.
Take more risks. There's more at stake. And he was right.
That's great. I like that. That's really cool that you got like that specific advice. I feel like, I don't know, my parents are like the opposite. They're like, no, just do the thing that will make you comfortable.
Well, I mean, that's how my mom is.
Yeah.
My dad is the yin and the yang.
Yeah, that's good.
The balance, the angel and the devil. This question, so talking about free time and everything, I think that like we all had so much free time over a pandemic, and for me that was challenging because I had too much free time, and that definitely like slowed me way down. But this question is from at Mayfuckuser. I remember I'm trying to read these handles. They ask, I remember you, Jorge, once mentioned the pandemic resulted in even more creativity for you. Could you explain a bit about this and how you may incorporate it in the future?
Oh yeah, when the pandemic hit, it lit a fire. It definitely lit a fire. Remember when I talked about how Mexicans have death in their ear, whispering, live? The pandemic gave her a giant microphone, and Death got to sing it really loud, and it made me go, holy shit, what if I die? And what if this is it? Then I gotta make it count. I gotta make, it's legacy time. This might be it. What if my parents die? What if everybody I love dies? Now or never. So that just fueled me. I feel like as someone who thrives in resilience, the pandemic was beautiful for me. Knowing the world was ending made every choice that much more important. And it definitely harnessed this idea that, I'm a workaholic already, but it allowed me to escape the awfulness of the world, to dive into my work.
Yeah. I
think it did for a lot of us.
Yep.
That's great. It did, yeah. I think that we, in animation and entertainment in general, if we were lucky enough to still be employed during that time, like I think it helped because it's like we at least had some semblance of normality. But I'm sure to anybody that couldn't even do their jobs, it was probably rough. So it's like, yeah, I feel that. At Soya Sedario asked, what kind of difficulties have you had as a writer to conceive an idea that non-Mexicans like? And what do you do to solve that culture?
Man, that's a really good question. So one of the things that happened to me early in my career was I realized if I only make things that people from Mexico will get, I'm fucked. I can't do that. And I would look at movies from my country and I would go, hey, I love this movie. Why didn't it travel? Why didn't it get out? And why did Amores Perros and Como También and, you know, the Guillermo del Toro's movies, like, why did these movies connect with the world? And I really sort of started studying, like, my favorite albums and my favorite books. And usually they're the first ones. And it was pretty clear to me, the more I studied all this stuff, I went, oh, it's because these books and these albums and these movies, right? Like, I love Amelie. I love Seven Samurai. I love City of God from Brazil. All these works are universal. They could not be more specific in their setting, and they could not be more specific in their characters, but the themes are universal. Seven Samurai could take place in Berlin and Mexico and China 500 years ago, today, 100 years from now. Warriors dying to save ungrateful farmers from bandits is a universal story. Amelie could take place in Mexico. City of God could take when you strip it down, it's universal. So when I write, I try to use my culture
when you strip it down
as the canvas, but the story I tell is universal. Biggest mistake I've seen is when people make the culture the story, or where they try to explain the culture. That's the worst. You should when I write and the stuff that I really admire, the best example, the recent example I've seen is Reservation Dogs. When I watched Reservation Dogs, I think it's a brilliant show. And like a lot of shows about places and people I don't know, what it does to me is it makes me feel privileged that I get to witness this world. And it's basically a window into a world I don't know. But the closer I look at that window, the more I realize it's a mirror. Because I go, oh, I've had experiences like this. Oh, dads and daughters, friends who passed away, all these things are universal. So I think that as a writer, that's where I try to go. Even if I'm doing something crazy, I always try to ground it in a human experience.
Yeah, things that are universal to everybody.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's the stories that always resonate. I mean, it's like when you really strip it down, it doesn't matter how, if it's a different culture, or if it's in fucking space, like if it's themes that people can get behind, that's always what matters. And it's the same thing with like lore, where it's like it's either it can be cultural differences or it can be like too much lore, and it's like if it's lacking an emotional core, it's just gonna be harder for people to connect to it. That's a lesson I had to learn for sure. It's tough.
Oh yeah.
What kind of goals do you have for your future career?
Immortality and
yeah. That's what we've been talking about this whole time,
Yeah, it's I want to leave my art form better than I found it, and I want to leave examples, and I want to make sure the bones of my failures are used to create ladders by the next generation. And I want to help. What I found is when I help others, it comes back to me in ways that are unexpected. And I got helped when I started, and I got helped. So when young artists, I mean, it's harder for me now because I don't think I've ever been busier, but when I see something I like for example, Gene, that's how I met you. I wrote you. I don't know if you remember. I was like, fuck, I saw your short. And I was like, I got to tell this guy.
Oh, I remember. It was really important to me because Jorge came to do a talk at Nickelodeon, and it was awesome. I got to hear a lot of this stuff then too, and it's very inspiring. And yeah, I think you were tagged in a photo, and so was I on Facebook. I never want to thank Facebook, but it did help. And yeah, I think I was like, hey, it was great watching or something. And then you messaged me. Yeah, you messaged me and you told me that you watched a short, and dude, it's knowing who you are and what you had accomplished. It was so validating. And since then, we've had conversations and lunches, and you've always been very helpful. And obviously I want to pay it forward. I've been trying to help people that come to me or people that I see that could use the advice in pitching or whatever, just career. And this whole podcast, honestly, I mean, it's a result of that. It's gotta, we want to pay it forward. Sitting on years of experience is selfish and not productive. And so I think that's super commendable.
Well, and honestly, what you guys are doing with the podcast is exactly that. The amount of people that you guys are helping, the amount of people that hopefully are inspired and motivated. And one of my favorite things about what you guys do is you demystify the jobs and you demystify the reality of this thing so that people don't think it's this magical luck or this, they read a book or they took this shortcut and that's how they got their thing. That's what you guys are doing. I think is brilliant. And it's going to come back to you 1,000-fold, the amount of people you're helping and the amount of people you're hopefully they will look back and, you guys will hear all this. So
that would be
on behalf of the animation industry,
I hope so.
On behalf of everybody, thank you guys for doing what you do.
I would really love that. One of the big things that I say is that I used to see that discourse on Twitter every couple of years, do I really have to go to art school? And I was, because of the debts and all that stuff. And I'm and I just wanted to have all of the guests, all of the people who work in animation, and nobody has the same journey. And all of the journeys are as interesting, and there's always twists and turns. And I think having the most amount of people come on the podcast and showcase that there's not just one single way, I think it's just so cool. So hopefully it inspires people out there and to try hard and not give up.
Yeah.
I mean, don't fall, like we talked about, don't fall in love with the result.
Yep.
Fall in love with the process and you will be okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's some good words of wisdom. Well, what do you want to plug while you're on the show?
So this will have, by the time this comes out, Maya and the Three will have premiered. So I'm super, super hopeful that this is the first time I release something on Netflix. So all the eggs are in that basket. And I'm just gonna plug that. If anybody hasn't seen it, and if anything you heard me say, all the stuff I talk about is in the show. So it's very much about that. It's about going on a journey and realizing that the reward is the journey. So Maya and the Three.
I am so excited. It looks so good. It looks so good. Yeah.
It looks amazing. I don't know how you accomplished it.
By the power of streaming money, anything can happen.
Well, but also years of expertise and knowing how to put your vision on paper, I guess, even though we're not doing this on paper anymore. Well, that's the end of this creative block. Thanks to Jorge for being our guest and sharing his story.
And thanks to your listeners. Follow us on Twitter. It's @CreativeBlock, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews as well as bonus episodes. Click the link in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Gene.
And I was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.